with dinner.
The buried alive model, often referred to as its code, the Berryman script, was to be found on the final story of the Pokemon Tower, in what has now been replaced with the Marowak Ghost. According to the scripts assigned to it, the buried alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. Once reaching the top floor, the following conversation would have taken place.
You're here. I'm lonely. So very lonely. Won't you join me?
After this, the battle would have been initiated. Once in battle view, the buried alive model appears to be a decaying human corpse attempting to crawl out of the ground. It's been programmed to have 2 white hands, a Gengar, and a Muck. Strangely enough, a protocol for the buried alive's actions after it was defeated were not written. In the case of the player defeating him, the game would freeze. However, a specific ending was written by an unknown programmer upon losing the battle. In this ending, the buried alive was to have stated,
Finally, more meat.
followed by several lines of gibberish. He was to have then dragged the player into the ground surrounding him. The scene would finish with a typical game over screen. However, in the background, an image of the buried alive character devouring the player was to have been shown. Especially strange are the protocols for after this scene. The cartridge was to download this image to a small internal memory contained in the Game Boy, overwriting the title screen that normally accompanied a Game Boy turning on. Instead, when it was started, the player would view this image as a sound file staticmesh.wav was played. The intended purpose for this effect, unlike many of the other factors leading towards Lavender Town Syndrome, is unknown. Have you ever woken up only to find there was someone staring at you? It happens all the time to people on trains, buses, planes, and in public places. In fact, studies have shown that this instinctive response is a highly evolved defense mechanism of the subconscious mind, alerting your senses to the presence of a potential threat. Many other species in the animal kingdom possess similar traits which prove beneficial to survival. Given this, you might want to consider quickly pulling your curtains closed and shutting your door the next time you instinctively wake up at 3 AM. That is, of course, if it's not already inside your room. You're sitting at home on the computer after a long day at school, like you always do. You check the clock on your computer. It's 9 PM, and your parents are probably asleep upstairs like always. You hear a sharp sound of a TV turning on, and you know it's your sister watching Doctor Who or playing on the Wii like she does every night. You decide to check your Facebook out of pure habit, and see you have a message on your wall. You begin to read. Your mum and I are so proud of you. You're growing up so fast. We just want to thank you again for watching the house while we stay at Disneyland Resort with your little sister. Hope you're having fun. You think to yourself, oh yeah, I forgot they were out. You then hear something click. As you hear the sound of the television turning off upstairs, you freeze like a statue on your tracks. Your blood runs cold. You begin to hear the footsteps of someone coming down the stairs behind you. The silence after the last footstep leaves you choking, with your eyes wide in panic. You hold your breath, daring to not even glare to the right of you. All you can do is scream in your head and pray that the silence never breaks. All you can do is pray for the silence. On every college campus, there is a hallway, nondescript, tucked away, often on the top floor of a building or off of another hall where only a few classrooms have been placed. It melts into the background of every student's life, drowned out by the music department or wedged between two lecture halls. Occasionally, a lost freshman will wander down it, running late for their first class. Should such a lost soul wander through that hall, all they will find is a single, empty classroom. This room has never held a class, not a scheduled one anyway. The sign outside its door will always say the number of the class you are searching for, and many a released student has collapsed into one of the desks, believing they have reached their class on time. When the classroom continues to remain empty, most will scramble back into the hall before the class period has started. They will leave with only a rush of adrenaline that they will later explain away as a result of being late for class. They will then continue their search for the correct classroom. Should they try and access this hall again, it will be gone, but that is for the best. Those who wait until the class period has begun before realizing they're in the wrong room will hear a bell. It will be a high-pitched ringing commonly associated with the start of classes, except colleges do not bother with such bells. But that's because it isn't a school bell. It's a dinner bell. When I was a child, my family moved to a big old 2-floor house with big empty rooms and creaking floorboards. Both my parents worked, so I was often home alone when I came home from school. One early evening, when I came home, the house was still dark. I called out Mum and heard her sing-song voice say, "Yes?" I called her again as I climbed the stairs to see which room she was in, and again got the same "yes" reply. We were decorating at the time, and I didn't know my way around the maze of rooms, but she was in one of the far right ones, right down the hall. I felt uneasy, but I figured that was only natural, so I rushed forward to see my mum, knowing that her presence would calm my fears, as a mother's presence always does. Just as I reached for the handle of the door to let myself into the room, I heard the front door downstairs open and my mother call, "Sweetie, are you home?" in a cheery voice. I jumped back and ran down the stairs to her, but as I glanced back from the top of the stairs, the door to the room slowly opened a crack. For a brief moment, I saw something strange in there, and I don't know what it was, but it was staring at me. I'd had them ever since I was a kid. I can remember being incredibly self-conscious about them, hiding them in my pockets under books and bags. The kids at school never said anything to my face, but I knew they were laughing behind my back. I remember asking my parents to take me to the doctor to get them checked out. The growths on my hands seemed to be the elephant in the room back then, since they'd just say I was fine and change the subject. But I knew better. I tried to remove them as a child, but without avail. Scissors, knives, potato peelers. Trying to cut or scrape them off was always a lost cause, because I couldn't continue once the pain kicked in. But today was different. It's amazing how numb you can get with a couple of tourniquets and a bottle of Jack Daniels. I was originally planning to use a sharp knife, but figured that trying to slice through the tough flesh of the growths would be too arduous in my drunken state. I opted for a slightly more technological plan B. I had to hurry though. I was already pretty lightheaded and was starting to feel dizzy. My hands and forearms nearly blew from the lack of circulation. It couldn't wait much longer. The whirring of the blender helped to put me in a sort of trance, ready to do what I wanted to do since I first looked down at my strange deformities. I shoved my left hand in first. The immediate sensation of sharp blades slicing through my flesh was jarring, but I was surprised at how well the alcohol was working. I expected it to hurt more. I could hear the sharp metal churning and cutting, working perfectly as planned. I pressed my hand down harder. All those bad memories, all the embarrassment, all those horrible things were now nothing more than a thick red pulp. Breaking from the feeling of ecstasy, I pulled out before the blades hit knuckle. I smiled, taking a good look at my new hand. As for the growths, well, 5 down and 5 to go.